Today's going to be a bit of a personal share on my part of how I am experiencing courage presently in my life as I pursue walking in integrity. I wanted to do this just because I don't want, um, there is, it's rare when I struggle for words. I've lived a long time with facilitating how people perceive me, and I have facilitated perceptions that are inaccurate. Um, and as a result, that hasn't built a really solid foundation of trust or dependability. And in the aftermath, there was a lot of hurt, especially just because I didn't quite share, hey, here's what's really going on. I'm the kind of person who seems to be an overachiever. I do really well at whatever I commit myself to. I try to bring excellence to the job. And so there's this ethos, this sense of competence that I bring to the table. And when people see that, they say, oh, here's an accomplished individual who doesn't seem to struggle in so many ways as the rest of us would. And what I want to share with you is I actually do struggle. There's a lot of things that I find daunting on a daily basis where I'm trying to figure it out. And I don't want to facilitate that kind of perception that, oh, there's nothing wrong. Even as I focus on this theme of integrity and how young men, specifically you guys, could walk in it, I want you not to see me as this guru or anyone like that. I'm actually just like you guys trying to figure it out as well too. There's a lot of things I've figured out by this point, especially through painful experience, and hence why I make this time to share with you guys so that I could say, hey, don't go the pathway that I did. Here's some helpful things to consider along the way. So there's some things, yes, that I do know and I have strong perspectives about, but it doesn't entail that I am by any means having a friction-free life. I definitely have a lot of things, and I want to share a couple of those things with you today, specifically so that you can see me in my humanity. One of the things I want to make sure is that I have a balanced way of presenting myself. I don't always just want to show the, hey, here's me in my strong points. Here's me doing really well in this or that, without the balance of saying, here's me also trying to figure things out. And here's one of the ways I'm trying to figure things out. This conversation was spurred as I was talking to someone dear to me yesterday. And this person who I care deeply about, and we're having this conversation, is representative of so many who are very close to me in life. And so one of the beautiful things that happens when you get closer in your friendships with people is that they get to see more of you. They get to see more of what it means to be you and what makes you you, and how consistent are you along the way. And it's always delightful when you get to learn new things about someone that you thought you knew, and you're like, oh, I had no idea, for example. And so this conversation was especially inspired by that conversation with this person, and they were just shocked, for lack of better words. They were shocked that they said, Binyam, I never would have guessed that you struggle in this way. And so they got to learn a little bit more about me. They got to see and experience a side of Binyam that they didn't have access to before. And I want to share that with you again, just because I think it would be helpful for you to have an appropriate expectation of what it means when you're listening to me and giving me your influence if you are considering doing that. I don't have it all together. So let's dive in. I'm talking specifically about courage and how my courage presently is being tested. I'm talking about this because right now I'm in the midst of a series on courage under the main umbrella of integrity, and what it means for us young men to walk with integrity, and why courage is a really necessary prerequisite to it. And so yeah, courage, how my courage is currently being tested, and how I'm growing in integrity as a result. I'm going to give you a peek into the way my mind works, a peek into the way my heart works, how I'm feeling my way through this. A dear friend in my 12-step group some weeks back challenged me, saying, Binyam, like, the perception of this person was that I'm very intellectually based, and that I usually think logically, and I do. But their gentle encouragement was, how can you also feel with your heart even while you think with your head? And that previous relationship, a dear relationship that I had, also would say the same thing. Binyam, how can you feel with your heart instead of just thinking with your head? And I think that's an important balance that I want to practice with you guys. So I have a few points that I have listed down here that I'm going to work my way through so I can just keep organized like I usually do. Let me first of all talk about my New Year's resolution. One of my New Year's resolutions this year, I foresaw or perceived that this year I wanted to walk into some new spaces of discomfort. I wanted to walk into some new spaces of discomfort, not because I wanted to experience the discomfort. I don't like discomfort, but because I'm driven by how can I be growing presently. I don't want to go through life, dear friends, with accolades from the past saying, oh, here's what people said about me once upon a time that I did this or that. No, I want to continue to live in the moment, in the present. I want to continue to experience. I want to continue to evolve and change personally. And that's what really drives me. And so I am continually on the lookout for ways of how Binyam can be refined and grow. I don't want to stay where I'm at. I love where I'm at. I love how I've gotten to where I'm at. I love all of the growth that's happened to bring me to this present moment. So grateful for that. So grateful. But I want to continue to get better. I want to continue to strive. I want to continue to push my limits, especially in my number one purpose in life. And my number one purpose, guys, is working on me. And I was telling this individual that was having this conversation with me yesterday about this, that I think I can confidently say that that ought to be everyone's number one commitment, is for us to work on being better. One of my previous videos that I just posted, the interview in the park with Nathan and Elizabeth, I loved their common refrain. How can you be the best you can be? Love that refrain. It was so simple. It was so succinct. It was right to the point, and it was just very refreshing. How can we continue pursuing being our best version of ourselves? And I think we, being a process of change continually, should strive for that on an ongoing basis. The point that we drop that as one of our priorities is the point that we see regression personally. I think if I were just to like coast now, I would start regressing. I think for me to continue to get better, it's that continual striving. That's what I would argue, even in the sense of walking in integrity. I want to keep pursuing it. I don't want to say, okay, I've arrived, because then that's when I start to regress. I want to continue pursuing into it. And so this is my form of growing. And so one of my New Year's resolutions this year was I wanted to experience something that is inaccessible to me, and that is the courage to approach strangers and establish a connection or contact there when there is no predetermined reason for why we should even be together. And what I mean by that is this. Most of my success socially has been in the spaces where there has been a predetermined, established reason for why I'm connecting with people. For example, when I'm at work, there's a reason that I'm there with others and we have a common task to do, or there's people that I'm serving and there's a reason why they're coming to me. As an Uber driver, for example, I would have a reason for why people are approaching my vehicle in the first place and getting in my vehicle. That was a predetermined reason that gave me an excuse for why I could connect with them. And that's where I flourish. That's where I do amazing. It's on that premise where people that I'm interacting with have a predetermined excuse or a reason that we're getting together, and then that's my point of connection with them. This happens both in my personal life, my professional life. There's always been a predetermined reason for why I connect with people. And so that's where I've really mastered my skill and become really good at what I do in connecting with people, is because there's always this predetermined reason in advance. My New Year's resolution, however, and this sense of desiring growth in my personal life was, how can I now move that skill set into a different one where there was no predetermined reason that brings me together to connect with people? How can I hone my skill in connecting with people and establishing that contact when there was no reason in advance that they were coming to the table? This is a very scary one because in the cultural context in which I'm presently in this Western context, people really value their privacy. They also value not being accosted is not the right word. They value not being put at um, they value not being discomforted by someone who is approaching them without their consent, if you will. And this happens in various contexts. For example, in this cultural context, when people get telephone marketers who are interrupting their private time on their time when they're not working in their homes, when they get a call from a telemarketer, there's often a response of frustration saying, I don't want to receive these inquiries or solicitations for business. I'm not interested. They want to control that kind of dynamic, and they only want to be the ones who approach, not the ones who are being approached. Same thing for those who are going door to door knocking. Like, that's an intrusion on people's time that they value highly. I think furthermore of those who are working in malls and those who are standing like in the mall aisles and they're trying to get people's attention, and for a huge part I would say they have a high percentage of people who just ignore them and walk on by. Why? Because people want to control when they're being approached, what they're going to express interest in. And so it's a very daunting thing to be able to approach someone with an interest that you have, to get their interest as well, where it's a communal connection there, That's what I was feeling the challenge to move into this year, and it's a daunting, scary proposal. And as I was sharing this with this person yesterday, this person was saying, I could never do that. That's like, never. No, that's not my interest. It's not my interest either, but I could feel, based on what my calling and purpose in life is, especially to connect and inspire others, that this is one frontier that I wanted to have some growth in. I wanted to experience some shifts there for myself personally. So this is really scary, and I was like, I don't like it, but I could feel that I was pushing myself towards this. So my New Year's resolution this year, I want to put myself in those uncomfortable spaces where I'm going to practice talking to strangers. No predetermined reason why they would be interested in anything. They don't even know me from Adam or Eve, and so this is going to be daunting. But I want to see if I can work on that skill where I can approach people. My fears. So I just talked about my resolution. Now I'm going to talk about my fears. My fears are part of my codependent struggle for a lifetime has been, how can I not feel rejection? How can I not feel rejection? Because I know like a lot of people don't like feeling rejection. For me, it's the personal part for me on this one here is, and hey, when I just, sorry, a little caveat here. When I get emotional, please don't get distracted by the emotional expressions, because this is important for me to express and normalize, especially for us guys, right? Us guys aren't supposed to get emotional. I say hogwash to that. I say it's important for us to be in touch with how we can express our emotions. And so when I get emotional, when guys get emotional in general, it makes people feel discomfort. And I just want to say, hey, don't feel discomfort. Make space for it. Make space for it in letting the person express that emotion, because that's a healthy expression. And I think that's important for us to highlight. So please don't get distracted by this. When I feel this, it's important, and I'm going to express it. I'm going to express it unapologetically, and I want to normalize it. So moving on, the fear was driven because when I first moved to this country, for the first few years as a young boy, I felt rejected. I felt a huge amount of rejection and ostracization because I didn't quite fit in. And so I think this is why I feel really deeply on this insecurity of rejection. And so for a lifetime, one of the things I've done really well is I've worked at not feeling rejection from others. I've tried to put myself in spaces where I don't feel rejected. And so I've done really well at that for a lifetime. But it wasn't until maybe a couple years ago I was attending this cuddle party. It was a fantastic idea. I thought, hey, great! I'm gonna go and connect with some people, enjoy some cuddles. I really appreciate physical touch, and this is gonna be great. But the facilitator did a bang up job. She spent an hour in advance of talking about boundaries and what those look like in the space that we're creating here. And when she got to the part about rejection and how to receive a no from, like, for example, if I were to express interest in the cuddle but someone did not, how to be able to like experience that no, that for me is rejection. And she did a great job at sort of like spelling out how we could do this and not have it reflect on us personally. And I think I should probably do a talk on that, because yeah, I like that idea. What do you guys think about the idea of a theme on the courage to receive a no or rejection? I think that's a helpful one. Anyway, I'm just thinking on the fly here. She did such a great job, but as she was covering that area of how to receive a no and how to interpret rejection, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that later on here, it was it got me super emotional, because it unearthed for me a zone that I'd buried so long ago of how I've been very careful not to put myself in spaces where I may get a no or a rejection. And I mean, I've received lots of rejection since then, but on a very core personal level, in that sort of a setting, it seemed deeper, like the no, right? And so I'm like, I need to face that. I need to figure out what's going on there. I need to figure out how I'm going to grow through this, because that's really still affecting me in a way that discomfort is really high. So my fear in this resolution is, I don't want to receive no's. I don't want to put myself in that space where people are going to say no to me and sort of like just kind of brush me off. That's not a good feeling. But I need to face this, and I wanted to face this. I think about my method. My method was really important too, because as I approach this challenge that's going to require my courage being tested, as I approach it, I also want to make sure I'm doing it well and tactfully. I want to make sure that I'm walking into this not ignorantly and not without careful consideration. And so my intention is to connect with people. My purpose is to connect with people where it's a two-way street. My purpose is to connect with people where there is a reception, where they're able to understand what I'm saying and what my intentions are. And so I had to think through carefully what my method is going to be. So my method would be that as I approach people for their time, as I approach them to share my ideas, as I approach them to make that connection, that I'd also be aware, I'd be self-aware of where are these people that I'm trying to reach, where are they at in that moment when I'm trying to reach them. So along this line here, how can I ensure that I'm not trespassing in an unfair way on them? So what I'm looking for when I connect with these people is their time, first and foremost. How can I respect their time? This means that I'm going to have to be aware of the moments in which I'm approaching folks, the environments in which they're in. For example, am I approaching these folks when they're on their way to work? This is probably not the best time for me to be asking for their time, because they have a schedule that they have to keep. I don't want to interrupt that. I don't want to put them out because of when I'm approaching them. So I wanted to make sure that the time frame that I'm asking for is in a space where they have expendable time. That's important. So that means that I'm going to be looking for people who are at their leisure, people who have expendable time, people who are sitting around and the obvious cues are that they have time to spend. That's specifically the window of opportunity that I'm going to look for. So that's part of my method. That way, when I approach them, I don't feel like I'm putting them out, but I'm also going to give them some options. And I'm going to move into my values here in just a moment. So that was part of my thought process there. How can I look for people who have time to share and who are accessible? Secondly, I also wanted to find people in a certain context. There are certain people who may have time that I'm still going to bypass because it's not going to serve what my intentions are, and that's to connect with them and to share ideas. And so for folks who are with young kids, I'm not going to approach them because they may have expendable time, but they are also still focused on time with their kids, and so I don't want to have that distraction in the space that I want to co-create with them. And so I won't necessarily, not that I don't like kids, I love kids, I love spending time with kids, but that's not a setting that facilitates good, deep conversations. So I'm going to bypass those opportunities. I think that's about it for the method there. And then my values that I wanted to bring to the table. A huge one here is consent. Consent is so huge in my life right now. I wanted to make sure that when I make my proposal to these folks who are having expendable time, so as I approach them, that I'm communicating my ideas. I want to be clear. I want to be concise. I want to catch them. You see, I only have a few moments to catch their attention and to state my intention so that they can make a decision on their part of yes or no. Am I going to go ahead with this? So my values would be, how can I ensure that the consent is solidly in place, where I'm giving them everything that they need to know in a very short span of time at that initial setting when I'm asking for their attention, so that they can say yes or no, I'm interested in going where you want to lead me. And so that means that I want to be clear, I want to be forthright, I want to say here's what my intentions are. And so basically it goes something like this. Hey, and I had to put together a plan of how we're going to spend our time, a time frame of how much time I'm asking from them, and here's what we're going to be doing in that time frame here. So here's how all that works. Let's see if I can do this in less than 10 seconds. This is how I've sort of worked my method so that it's accessible. I'll approach them and say, hey, are you interested? I'm doing 5-minute epic conversations on the theme of integrity for my podcast. Would you like to be a part? So in that phrase there that I just said, I have a span of time right at the very outset. 5 minutes of your time is all I'm looking for. You may have 5 minutes of your time to do what? To talk about something. We're going to talk about the theme of integrity, and it's for a reason, for my podcast. I have my cameras there that I'm holding, and so they will infer that this means that they're going to be on camera. And so that's also another component that I also want to make very clear when I have all that stuff ready. I'm not filming them per se yet. I want to make sure that they have consent even in that zone there. But all these things are going to give them intel for, is this a yes for me? Am I willing to go through with this? And this is the scariest part, is to kind of establish all this, but there's a reason, there's a purpose that's driving, compelling me. I'm very driven by this theme that I want to export to the world in essence, and I want to collaborate with them if they're willing. And as I watch the response, I'm watching for the, hey, yeah, for sure. That excitement is wonderful. That's a hell yes. That gives me a clear indication of their consent, that they've understood all those components. If they're like, I don't know, and they're feeling discomfort, then I'll move to the second clause, because one of the things I've observed in this culture is that people don't feel comfortable saying no. They feel a great discomfort when they have to say no. And so that's when you'll probably get the faux yeses, if I can call it a faux yes, like a false yes. They're like, I guess, but their heart's not really into it and they feel more coerced. In which case, I'll encourage them saying, hey, if you do feel discomfort, I also want you to know that I would value no answer, because that's honesty on display there. I want to encourage you to say no. And so that's no qualms on my part. It really means a lot that you feel a hell yes sort of response. So I'll encourage them to say no, and that just as a way of encouraging them to grow into their power, to be able to own their no, and so I want to facilitate that. And that isn't a rejection that I feel on my part, because I've been able to work through what no's mean in this space. Before I get to that point. And then there'll be some people who are like, yeah, no thank you. In which case I'll say, thank you for considering, and I'll move on. And that's an important part for me too, is making sure that I have folks who are going to be part of this presentation, this content, who are definitely hell yes. That's really important. That's part of my walk with integrity, is making sure that I make sure consent is in full effect, where their yeses are hell yeses and their or no's are honored and encouraged to go that way. My values further go on to say that I don't personally feel rejected when I receive those no's, because I've worked in my mind a story of what that no means. That no means that they're looking after themselves. They're doing self-care for themselves, and they're knowing well enough what works for them. And I want to partner with them and saying, hey, I want to encourage that, and I don't take this personally. I take this as you knowing what works for you and what doesn't work, and I want to protect that space, and I want to participate in that space by saying, no, I don't want to take something from you that you weren't willing to give in the first place. That's so important for me. And so that's the narrative. My narrative in my mind is I don't take rejection. When they say no, it's not a rejection of me. They don't even know what I'm all about. And so I know what I'm about. I love what I'm about. I love what I'm trying to do and accomplish. And I love the space in which I'm in. But others may not necessarily be on the same page. And I want to really honor that too. And I want to bless that. I want to say yes to that, you know. And so I get excited when they say no, because I'm like, great. I want to move on from this experience onto another one. Perhaps at some point in the future, I'm going to make a series of no's that I receive and how I respond to them. I respond to them not saying, oh, like, okay, and I feel down on myself. No, I'm like, hey, that's okay. Thank you for saying no. And I'll move on to find my yeses. That's the narrative that's in my mind. They're not saying no to me. They're saying no for themselves and what self-care for them looks like personally. And my response is just a celebration of that no. And my response is even a celebration in an equal measure for the yeses, saying, oh, great, let's do this, you know. And all this is how my courage is being tested. As I walk into this space, the greatest point of discomfort is for me to have the courage to approach people who my fear is saying they're just going to shut you down and say, hey, you're a nuisance. I might be, but that's not the intention in which I'm approaching this. My intention as I approach this is to say, hey, I want to collaborate and connect with you on this premise where we could experience something beautiful. Are you game? Are you interested in moving forward with me? And my response is usually driven from what my mind is interpreting first and foremost logically. A no doesn't mean rejection of me. A no means self-care for someone else. A yes means, hey, yes, I'm willing to collaborate with you, and that's wonderful too. And both of those answers are really critical in the way that my energetic response is. I don't feel any sense of like sadness anymore as I receive the no's. The scary part, yes, is still approaching people, because that's still not comfortable. As I approach them, I don't know what the response is going to be. But there's a certain confidence that I'm also trying to bring to it, saying I'm motivated by the why of why I'm doing what I'm doing. As I approach these people cold turkey and they have no idea what I'm about to present, I want to be able to communicate first and foremost. In that short span of time, being aware culturally that this is all I have before they are like, okay, you're really taxing on my time and I want to honor that. And so just in this short span of time, how can I be succinct and get right to the point? Here's what I'm about. Here's what my intentions are. Here's what my desire is. Are you a willing participant? If you are, wonderful. Let's move forward. If you're not, hey, thank you for having access to your no. And having that same energetic response that isn't more like elated when they say yes versus sad when they're saying no. It's more like, hey, thank you. I appreciate that. On both sides, I'm saying thank you for your time. Thank you for being willing to consider whether it was a yes or a no. So that's how my courage is currently being tested and how I'm growing integrity. I wanted to share with you my process that helps me still experience what integrity looks like in my life as I honor those that I'm in community with, those I'm rubbing shoulders with, how I'm acknowledging their their right to respect as I approach them, the demeanor in which I do it, the ethos in which I want to cultivate, the space I want to make certain that consent is being practiced. Yeah, that's all of how I've gotten to where I'm presently at, and it's giving me that courage to walk into this space of discomfort. Would I do this on my own? No. Why am I doing this? Because I feel compelled by what I want to share with y'all. And I think there's massive worth. There's massive value. That's what I'm looking for. There's massive value as I approach people because I feel that I'm going to leave something behind that is still wonderful. And it's been so enriching, as you guys have seen from the various conversations that I've already posted on this platform with strangers on this theme of integrity. It's usually a great time. They don't know what I'm about to present to them. I know what it is because I've done this for a long time now. I'm very fairly confident in my skill level to create the space and facilitate these connections. So I know what's coming. They don't. And so I want to honor them even as they're like considering at the outset saying, oh, what am I getting into? It's a risk. It's a risk. I acknowledge that. They don't know me well enough yet to be able to say, okay, yeah, this person's intentions are true. You guys know it because you've been watching me consistently for some time and you know where I'm coming from. So this is one area that I'm walking into courage, friends. And this is me sort of practicing what I'm talking about here. And this is me showing my vulnerable side where I don't have it together, but I'm still trying to put it together and I'm trying to flesh it out in a way that works for me. And here's the whys of what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. So that's just a bit of a peek behind the curtain. There's going to be, in about 2.5, 3 weeks time, a significant announcement that I'm going to be making to y'all on a very personal level. I'm still in the midst of going through this stuff right now, but yeah, there's going to be something I'm going to be sharing that's going to be pretty momentous, pretty momentous, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with you guys again because it's my way of walking in integrity, and to it's also it's going to take courage, but I've been practicing this courage thing for some time and I haven't mastered it. I'm still working on it, but this is part of my process. And so stay tuned. In a couple weeks time, I'm going to share that with you. It's going to be significant, like I say, but as I engage and exchange time with you and energy and ideas and why you're even watching this video, this is how I want to connect with you on a very personal level. This is how I want to have these spot checks, if you will. I'm saying, here's where I'm doing, how I'm doing right now in the moment, and how I'm figuring my way forward. So thank you for watching this video. I'm going to bring it to a close now. If you haven't already done so, I'd love for you to subscribe and be a part of this community. I'd love to hear your comments and your questions as well, because I want to make this practical for you guys. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video. Chat soon. Bye.